It's your boy Young Love, I give him that thing. Pancho leg stand and punchy America. Panji doll, the Banaban. Pancho leg stand and punchy America. Panji doll, the Banaban. Walk on your leg, Kankaro, what I know watching. Oga level leg, gear, wow, very leg. Panda with ya, Panchi America. Panya doll, Vano, Chingatonga Pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Papu Panda Jiro, what ya be doll venting. Stand up Panchi America, Panji doll, Banaban, Pancho leg stand up Panchi America, Panji doll, Banaban, walk on your leg, Kankaro, what I know watching, Oga level leg, gear, wow, very leg, Panda with ya, Panchi America, Panya doll, Vano, Chingatongo Pandon, could you ever buy a check out, Papu Panda Jiro, what ya be, doll, venting.
Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to Deng State Media. My name is Abraham Adin Majak. We have our special guest this evening, Rebecca Deng, and welcome my co-host, Mjong Makur, and thank you for those of you who are watching Deng State Media in Facebook and YouTube and Clubhouse. Welcome my co-host, Mjong Makur. Welcome, take a microphone back. And for those of you who are watching, please start sharing the video. And Mjong Makur, go ahead and introduce our guest. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abraham Adit. To all Leg State Media viewers on Facebook, Clubhouse, and YouTube, you are welcome to this show of today to discuss things that affect the communities and the experience of lost girls and lost boys in Western world and especially in USA. In the studio with us is Madame Rebecca Deng, one of the lost girls who have distinguished herself from the rest, and she is the author of a book titled What the Man for Evil. To this level, Madam Rebecca Deng, you are welcome to Lagos State Media, and we are happy you create time for us to come and feed our viewers with your thoughts and your experience in the foreign land as a lost girl. You are welcome. Introduce yourself, and then we move on with the question session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madid, and thank you, Magu, for inviting me to be with your viewer. Thank you to everybody that is watching. My name is Rebecca Deng. I am a former lost girl, resettled here in Michigan. So I'm just looking forward to conversing with you. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Unless Abraham did have questions to pose before I proceed, Abraham.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca and Majok. Yeah, actually, this is a very important show for today. As some of you know me, I'm one of the lost boy. I'm staying in Michigan as well, and this is important. So 22 years after we came to America, so we will look back how the life is after 22 years. And my colleague has a former lost girl. So we will talk a lot about it. We will talk about her book and also the experience here, same thing we went through. So this is what I want to add, and we proceed at Mujok.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abraham Adit and Madam Rebecca Deng. I'm glad to share the forum with the lost boy and the lost girl. And Abraham Adit, you will also help our guests when it comes to the narrative and explanations of your experience here in Western world, especially being lost girls and lost boys. You left the country or your motherland more than 20 years ago, and we will talk more about that in today's show. To Madam Rebecca, kindly can you briefly tell us your story before we move quickly to your book? How did you maneuver until you find yourself in the Western world as a lost girl? Can you narrate to us your journey from Sudan by then, who is currently South Sudan, to US?
Thank, thank you, Majid. Thank you so much. Yeah, so my journey began in 1991-92 when I left my home village of Duk and made my way all the way to reach Capoeira and then Kilipo, and finally we ending up in Kenya, Kakuma refugee camp. So I was in Kakuma refugee camp for 8 years before I came to United States. And when the program, the Lost Boys and Lost Girls of Sudan came, I was one of the people that got lucky, and I was resettled to Michigan. So that's my story. I left my village in 91, 92, made my way all the way to the border of Sudan back then, now South Sudan and Kenya, and then was in Kakuma for 8 years, and then applied for the Lost Boys and Lost Girls program and got in, and then came to Michigan as an accompanied minor.
Yeah, thank you for that. Can you explain to us who is Rebecca Deng, the author of this amazing book titled What the Men Are for Evil? Who are you, literally? And according to your book, you narrated it where you are and your route. And I can remember very well you are from Patel, and that is all from the other part end of Greater Bor. Can you kindly narrate to us or our viewers who is this person that we are talking to?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So, Rebecca Deng, I'm South Sudanese, and I'm a proud South Sudanese. As we know, South Sudan have a lot of different tribes, and it's a very diverse nation. So I hail from a Dinka tribe, and within Dinka tribe, I came from a place called Dukpadiet. That's where my dad is from. My mother is from Bor. And so I have talked about, like, I come when I was growing up in Kakuma refugee camp. One of the things that my uncle did was to let us near relate or teaching us our genealogy. So from my name to like 15 generation back. So as you mentioned, I am from Dukpadiet, Hall, Patel, Panaluk. That's my immediate family. But after all, I see myself as a South Sudanese.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca Deng. It's good actually at some point to elaborate where you are and your route. In your book, you have well articulated the reason to why South Sudanese have those long names. In fact, they just say the full names according to the family lineage up to the 15th, 16th, up to 20th. And that's very good. And that is where we normally trace our route. Madam Rebecca, kindly, can you tell us about your book? What inspired you to have this book? Or how? Who is your role model, in fact, that advised you should write a book to tell the world about your story and inspired other young girls and other young women of South Sudan and across the continent of Africa? Can you tell us who inspired you to write this book? And alongside that questions, you will explain to us what the titles of your book means in details.
Thank you. So what inspired me to write my book is what you touch about, like growing up as a Dinka girl. I was told about who I am. My identity was so important. My bloodline from my mom's side, my dad's side of family, and being a Sudanese, that was so important to me. So when I came to United States and was resettled as an accompanied refugee child, resettled in a town that I was pretty much the only South Sudanese at that time in Holland, Michigan. Uh, so with those experience that I had, and then finally when I was in DC working as a professional, young professional person, trying to make it into the working world, I visited a museum in Washington DC actually, and it was a Native American museum. And then they have a little thing called a repalka. It's a time ball, and on time that time ball it says that a Native American woman will record her life history, her courtship, her hardship, her success, her history, and then she can end up have multiple time balls that are made with beads, and that she's the only one that know the meaning of beads scheme or theme, and she's the only one that know the nuts that they do with the time ball, and she is the one that can teach the next generation what those one mean, or she choose to not teach them, that's fine too. They have a freedom to teach or to not teach, but when they die, they are buried with them. And I think it was at that time where I was like, okay, when I was growing up, my experience as a lost girl or with my family before the war come is uniquely my experience. And I'm here in the United States, grew up, came as a teenager, grew up here. My children will be born here in the United States, and they will know nothing about my background. I can try my best to teach them, but people learn better when they experience things. So I can talk about my family. I can talk about animals that I saw in childhood. I can talk about environment, but if they have never been there, it's so hard for them to imagine. So at that time, I had promised myself, and I said that, one day I will write a book to keep that record for my family. I didn't necessarily think of it to be a big book that will be sold worldwide. I thought of it to be a journal. So I kept recording things that I remember. And then when I have a phone call with my family back overseas, I will ask them some question of something I remember, and then I write it down. So it was kept as a journal. And then I think it was like ending of 2015, at the US border, there was a crisis of children being separated from their families. And at that time, it really just triggered my experience when I left my village at age 6 years old. So at that time, I really just started writing more and more. And then I shared it with a friend of mine, finally. And she said that this is a really good book. I think you should not keep it as a journal. I think that you should pitch it and see who will publish it. So that's how What They Meant for Evil come about. How did I choose the title? The title, What They Meant for Evil, I was thinking of like the history of the lost boys and lost girls of Sudan. And the only character that was close to our history is the history of Joseph in the Bible, when Joseph was sold by his brothers to Egypt, and didn't have an idea if he will make it or not. Years later, there was a famine, and they end up, and then Joseph now is in Egypt, being with the king family, and was able to aid his family help. At that time, when we were coming to United States, there were a lot of stories that you are not really actually going to US, you're going someplace. So that was my fear. I could have refused to not jump in that plane, because at 15, what do you know? I have never been to United States, but I took a leap of faith and then went into the airplane and came here. But then later on, me and a lot of lost girls and lost boys of Sudan have contributed amount of help back home, either through medical or just providing for education, food, anything you call it, emotional support. So that's why I choose the name What They Meant for Evil. Also, I choose the name What They Meant for Evil because of multiple incidents that happened in my life that were not necessary. Um, thoughtful things, but they happen. So it's like whatever event happened, like for me, for my village, to leave my village as a young child, for some of the lost boys and lost girls, for some of the South Sudanese that are even still in a refugee camp now, to be kicked out of their village. That is what somebody meant for evil against that population. But for some that make it out, you can be able to say what you meant for evil, God intended for good. So that's how I came about with the title.
Wow. Thank you for that. Well articulated. And how you drive your title. There are multiple ideas or evil activities that took place in then Sudan, and that actually come as your experience when you were commuting from your area of your birth to eastern part of Equatoria, all the way to refugee camp, Kakuma in Kenya. And then luckily enough, you find yourself as one of the lost girls, and you came to the first world country, United States of America. Yeah, thank you for that. And if someone may ask, Rebecca, according to your book, who is here do you refer as evil, or what incident specifically do you refer as evil, and what are the events that you may realize or you may tell us that these events actually certify humanity or humankind on earth, and these events are evil in correlate to your title?
Thank you. Evil is theologically, what is evil is basically what is not doing justice to any human being. So when things happen, like children being bombed, like in Capoeira, there was one day that we got bombed. That is an evil thought, to bomb civilians when they don't have guns. So that can classify as evil. It is another story on the other end if the other person see it as evil or see it as a way to dominate or whatever they justify it for. I'm not gonna go into like the lesser evil and the bigger evil, but when I choose my title, what I simply describe as evil is the act of injustice against civilians. Act of injustice against civilian, be that by the people that were fighting the Southerners, or be that be the South Sudanese themselves who have power that mistreat civilian. That act is an evil in itself. So when I say what they meant for evil is not tied to one event, it's a continuation of events that do injustice to humanity. And also, when I say what they meant for evil, I have in the back of my mind policymakers too, because I remember when we were in Lokishokyo, there was a talk about who are these population of people that are here. Are they refugees? Or maybe they are not refugees, maybe they are refugees. Well, when those people that are privileged sit at the table and discuss if these people are refugees or not, like what is happening now in Ukraine, life is being lost there. So in that sense, you could argue that like when we make decisions that to not rescue life on time, that delay of making a decision in itself could be evil, because it's only then the person that make it out like I did that can say what you meant for evil, I'm here now. But those who have not make it, they can be counted their disappearing or their loss of life. It was meant for evil.
Wow, thank you for that. Literally, you mean there is no any other evil apart from man himself on earth, right?
Yes.
Thank you for that. According to your book, the first page, you wrote how a lost girl of Sudan found healing, peace, and purpose in the midst of suffering. I found that statement very powerful, and it is humanity-based statement. Kindly, can you elaborate more of that statement? What kind of healing and peace, purpose you have found in the midst of suffering? And what are those suffering?
Thank you. Thank you, my dear. For me, when I wrote that sentence, I had in mind that, well, I'm not running every day and I'm not being bombed like when I was back in Sudan. So, in that sense, I have found some peace. I'm not running without water or without food. So, in that sense, I have found some peace. I I have obtained my dreams or my education. I dream of finishing high school, and that dream keep increasing to finishing masters. So, so that fulfilling of my, of my dreams, and that also that give me a peace of mind of things that I have desire and that they have happened. When I say so, in that sense, I find a peace of mind. But in the midst of suffering, I'm in the United States. So when I came to United States, it doesn't really matter if I count my name to like 10 or 15 generations. I become a new person now. Rebecca Deng, she is a former lost girl. She is an immigrant. She's a refugee. And there's a lot of, discrimination and mistreatment that you can get as a dark brown woman. Uh, Also, there's also a lot of blessing that can come to. So in that sense, it's like, yeah, in the midst of suffering, you go from one thing, and that's the interesting thing of suffering. When you suffer with one thing, like we came out of war and we came to United States, suddenly things are better, right? They are not like when we were in a war. But to argue that somebody that is here in the United States, in Lansing, Michigan, or in Grand Rapids, is way safer than somebody that is in a village in Sudan will be wrong, because it depends on what village. If that village is at peace, there's no war, and they have the running water and food and everything like that, they might be even at peace more because they are with their roots, they are with their family. But there are other hidden suffering that diaspora that we face. You might have everything material, you can look good, you can have degree, you can have all of these things, but you feel disconnected from your roots. So in that thing, that's what I meant by in the midst of suffering, I have found peace, meaning that whether I am in South Sudan or Kenya or Uganda or United States, I have found peace because I do have a foundation.
Yeah, thank you, our guest, Madam Rebecca, for that thoughtful elaborations. We actually need to look at, literally, you are telling us that no condition is permanent or no suffering is permanent. You can suffer today, tomorrow you can do something.
Yes.
Good. Based on your book,
There's no permanent situation, and there's no permanent culture that is the best, and there's no permanent nation that have all figured out. It's a constant changing.
all right, thank you. That's what I can close your book a bit, but we will come back to it within a few minutes. But I need you to tell us your experience as a lost girl. And some of the lost boys, we have Abraham Adit here. He will also tell us part of his story. And we truly believe one story of lost girl or lost boy is the same story applied to all the lost girls and lost boys who reside in Western world. Kindly, can you tell us the time you arrived here in Western world, especially in US, and settled in Michigan? And what are the things that you have experienced in life that South Sudanese can embrace, and some of the things that actually cannot match with how we live? And after that questions, we will move to the questions of cultural shock.
Yeah.
Activate the mic and take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. So when I came to United States, yes, I came with the Lost Boys and the Lost Girl. And sometimes it's interesting, you know, the Lost Boys and the Lost Girls of Sudan. The title is so powerful and have a meaning to it. But where do we begin the Lost Boys and the Lost Girls? You know, you have Katiba Banat that have left before, so could be the early Lost Girls. And then you have people like me that come in the 2000 and still those who are now not within the country and either internally displaced. But I'm going to talk on my experience. So when I came here as a Lost Girls of Sudan, I left home when I was 6 years old. So I kind of have like a little bit of my identity and where I come from. And also Kakuma refugee camp helped me a lot because I was there for 8 years and was able to play with my friends from different backgrounds. And sometimes even when I speak my Dinka, you cannot trace it down to one part of Dinka place because I had people from all over Dinka background. You know, that's the language that I spoke after school, or mostly sometimes too, even at the school. So that influenced my experience. But coming to United States as an accompanied refugee child, that was really it was really great at the same time, you know, being new in a new place, and now I'm gonna go to school. But it was also kind of traumatizing in a sense that you like I feel like for the lost girls and lost boys of Sudan, most of the boys had a freedom before we come to United States to explore, to go to different places. But as girls, we were strictly under the leadership of our caregivers. You know, that your uncle or your mom and dad, you were constantly being taken care of or told what to do. And then now you are in the United States, you are 15, so you have some freedom. You're not driving yet. And then when you hit 16, you are driving now and you are on the road. And being on the road come with a lot of things. Like, for example, for me, I had encountered a lot of things that I will get pulled over and then I will show my ID and they say, oh, you live in this address, you know, because I don't know. It was weird for them to see the address that I live in and that I'm from Sudan and my accent is different or whatever. So that was hard being in the United States as a young child. But the positive part was going to school. When I was able to start going to school, that was really, really positive. And also having some family members that were older that will check on me. And I remember Julianne, she's a South Sudanese woman that came one time to Bethany Christian Services and spoke to us, the children here, and give us word of encouragement and talk about like you are here in the United States today and maybe in the future you will go back to South Sudan, you will be teachers, you will be lawyers, you will be nurses, you know, whatever you want to be, you are the future of the nation. So that was really encouraging because the age that I came, I already know my identity, but I didn't know it deeply. And then now I'm emerging into a new culture that I have to like pick up really quickly because I don't really have a choice. Everything is conversed in English from my foster family to like going to school every day. So in that experience, I would say it was a mixture of good and also kind of like overwhelming at the same time.
All right, that's good. And it's very important at some point to at least to weigh the two pillars or two sides of your life story, which is very good. Can you tell us exactly some of the cultural shock that you experienced during your stay here in Western world, and how different is Western cultures from African-based cultures, especially from South Sudan?
Yeah, I would say that one of the cultural shock that was so different was that I grew up till I was 15. I can go to school, I can cook, I can communicate, but most of the decisions were made by my uncles or my uncle family. And now I'm in the United States. My foster family helped me, but I had to make decision. I had to make decision of like finishing high school and working. If I don't work, go to college. Those things were extremely overwhelming for me. Those were like a cultural shock. Second was the weather. Michigan is so cold. I came during winter time, and growing up till you are 15 years old, being outdoor every day, and then coming to United States and you are indoor for 6 to 7 months, that was really overwhelming. Another cultural shock too was in United States, when there's no difference really between a man and a woman in a sense, like what is expected of man is expected of you, and what is expected of women is expected of a man too. So man cook and drive, women cook and drive, men can change oil, women can change oil too. So being thrown into those things, they were cultural shock for me. Versus in our country or our culture, we have a division of labor. These things are the ones that women do, and these are the things that men do. But in the Western world, sometimes it seems like, oh, the Western world culture is like good, and there are some good. I'm not saying there are no good. There are some good, and even in our world culture too, there are some good ones. But the division of work is very clear in our culture. A woman is in the kitchen and do this thing, and a man is like providing. But here in the Western world, or when I was going to college, I had to learn my foster dad showed me how to change oil. And I remember I almost had a heart attack. I'm like, what about if the car go on me? But it was a good lesson, right? Like I know how to do it, and that was good. So those were just a little bit of cultural shock, and also they were good to look back and then say, okay, in my culture, these one are, like especially when you are a young girl and then you are forced out of school that bad, like a girl need to be a little bit older and go to school. But then in American culture, I saw something too where I'm like, okay, like this thing to do everything like, oh, we are equal in labor and everything. There are men are just created some time like, physically stronger, and there are some things that they can handle better than I can do. So it's just basically coming into between and just waiting out like what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And then again, I can't, when I went back to South Sudan in 2009, it was Sudan back then, I kind of get another cultural shock because I end up going to Yabus and Kurmuk area, and just seeing all of different tribe of people that were there, and the way of doing thing again as a woman, how you dress, how you address people, how you give people food. I had to learn over again, and that was another cultural shock. And I think for the first time, it became clear to me, yes, I'm South Sudanese and I understand the culture, but I have no idea about a lot of things.
Wow, that's great. And when you look at it critically, you said you have seen the level of equality here in Western world. What a man can do, a woman can do too. But in our cultures, there are some of the things that are prohibited and sometimes being treated as taboos, like in Dinka culture specifically. And if you look at your cultural shock by going back to South Sudan in 2009, that was your last time, right?
I went back again 2014 and 13, something like that. I went back twice to Juba.
Before you publish your book.
Yes.
That's great. Cultural differences is something unique and it is huge. But sometimes the most challenging part is how to reconcile the two cultures. at least to make the perfect relationship between them. How did you reconcile this relationship or cultural differences? You came from Sudan by then as a little girl, and you grew up here in Western World, and you went back to South Sudan. How did you reconcile the two?
Yeah, thank you, Majuk. I really I'm a big believer of knowing your identity. When you don't know who you are, you can be lost easily. And that's applied to either you were born overseas or you are born in South Sudan. And this is what I tell South Sudanese sometimes when they talk of the children born in the West that they need to be South Sudanese. Well, they really need to be South Sudanese, but on top of that, they need to know the culture they were born in and be competent in that culture because that is the identity. That's what they know. They can go back to South Sudan and visit and show them the cattle camp and how people respect their elders, things that are thing of virtue. They kind of go from culture to culture, but knowing yourself is so important. So for me, as I say, I came when I was 15. So part of my early childhood happened knowing who I am. And so, but then I came here and then emerged into another culture that I pick up really quickly. But I knew in my heart that if I don't reconnect with my roots, with my background, I can easily be lost. Speaking English really well, or like writing really well, or like having, like kind of good manners, or like you just draw people around you, they don't really cut when it comes to like everyday life of knowing who you are and why you exist in the first place. So with that thing, when I look into both of my two culture, I really took things that bring life into me. So think of education. When I was growing up in Kakuma refugee camp, I want to go to school. I was almost given up for post-marriage, like a guy that I met one time and then a day of Kenya and a day to say goodbye. But he come from a really good family, but their family was just like, this is the woman we want to marry. So in that sense, I respect the culture, but I will not do it like where I am now, where I go and be with somebody that I don't have an idea, like I don't know them, but it's just their family. That will be extremely hard, and that will be selfish of somebody to ask out of me because I grew up in a place where you or cultures that I grew up, you at least get to know a person, you go on a date and these things. So that will be hard of me to ask of me. But if a woman in a village is asked to marry somebody and they voluntarily agree, it will be selfish and wrong of me to look down on that girl and say, oh, why are they doing this? They don't know it. Well, it makes sense to them in the setting. That's what people do. That's what the age men do. It makes sense to her. So I will never look down on her and say I'm superior than her. But I might just say that it might be a good idea if that girl can go to school a little bit to get to know who she is and all of that. But yeah, so like just these like dancing between two cultures, like I said before, there's no perfect culture in this world. There's no perfect culture. A movie can like make a culture look very sexy and nice and all of these things, but there's no perfect culture. But a perfect culture, I believe, is a culture that asks itself, like, where were we and where have we been and where are we now? Because even to say a culture, it have to begin somewhere. And if you look at your culture, like going back, like for example, there's a lot of like talk in our Sudanese community about gender and women and men not equal. When I left the village, when I left at age 6, I don't have any issue because when I was growing up, me and my brothers were treated the same. So I never like grew up thinking that I'm a woman and I'm lesser than my brother. I would go, I just didn't go to like wherever they go and get cattle and all because I was younger. But if I was older, I would try to go. And nobody in my family was telling me to not do that. So it just become a case to case. And when you look at culture, I think it is so important. When we look at these ideas of like a Western culture is a beautiful culture that respect women, that do this, when I look back into the history of South Sudan from the time that I knew when my dad was a soldier, and I read a lot of books and I go to a lot of museums around the world when I travel, I have never seen a culture that I saw in South Sudan where men voluntarily totally just give their life to protect the women and children that they are safety. That was what I saw very beginning of my early childhood. So I knew that women and girls or children, boys and girls are the backbone of the country and should be protected by all costs. Well, now when you look back, you see it, but there's another history of things that are changing, and I think that it is important to visit back and be like, where were we? Because sometimes we mix the culture of people when people were in their villages without war, and then I say that there's another culture that I call a culture of trauma of people that have experienced something, so they will never be the same as before, but now it's being called culture instead of looking back, like way back, how did we treat each other and where are we in the middle, and then when the war happened, where are we, and right now after the war, where are we even? Because I feel even after South Sudan become an independent country, there's a lot of zipping, when you go through things, there's a lot to do, like what is really our culture and what is not our culture. So based on those things and my life experience, I just kind of took what makes sense to me and what fit into my situation and analyze it and then say, this is my culture.
That's great. According to, based on your experience and the level you are now, you have secured your education, you have experienced different life, and look at how things are run or culturally in South Sudan. When a family have or blessed by God with the two kids, one a boy, one girl, the family may decide, the typical Dinka man may decide to take a boy child to school and retain a girl child at house. Looking at all those factors, constants, what are some of the best recommendations or the cultures that you may recommend for South Sudanese men or society to embrace that you have found here in Western world before we come back to the contribution of lost girls and lost boys?
Thank you. I think the recommendation that I will give to people is that when you have a baby boy and a baby girl that God have blessed you with, treat them please equally in a sense that of opportunity. I'm not saying that because there are certain things that if a girl don't know or a boy don't know and they go with their age mate, if they are in a village, they will feel out of place. So I'm not telling them don't teach them something they do, teach them that. But please, when it comes to opportunity for education, treat them equally because I believe that a boy or a girl can give back equally to the community and also not the community. If you care about your daughter, I just strongly believe that it is better for a girl to get married when they can read medicine for their children. It could be just simple as that. Even like if they don't, I'm not saying that they all will finish university. It will be wonderful if they can finish university because we have seen the world have changed. Way back then it was okay because we were disconnected with the rest of the world and we were in the village. It was okay. You can basically survive with just having like your cows and your tribes around you and your fish and whatever animal that come that you kill and you eat. It was fine at that, but the world is getting smaller, and in a global world there's no way that we can have that mentality of I'm just only going to give one opportunity to a boy and not the girl. Who knows? Maybe your girl will be she could be the one that will discover medicine for cancer if she become a doctor, or she can be civil engineer, or she can be a lawyer or teacher, or a trauma healing person that will heal your nation from the experience that they have gone through. So I would say that give them the equal opportunity. And if you don't think you are investing on them immediately, think of your grandchildren. You are investing in the well-being of your grandchildren. And also, I would say that think wider too. You are investing in the nation of South Sudan by empowering the boys and girls equally. And also, when we talk about like sending boys to school and denying the girls opportunity, and we come to issues of leadership. Basically, leadership is like doing everyday thing. Leadership is not easy. And there are some qualities that a baby girl might have that can fit really well of leading people well. Leading people well, making sure everybody have food. Women cook all the time. They know that. They know how to buy things. So maybe there are just some tendency for that gender that you will just deny them the opportunity to make the world a better place, South Sudan a better place, or the whole nation. So I would say give them the same opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Literally, when I was in high school, I was in Kampala, Uganda. And my mathematics teacher by then, called Mutui, told us one time, as South Sudanese in our gathering, it was like, you guys, when you go back home, you grow up and you have your family, and maybe God bless you with the two kids of different gender, always give priority to girl child. And we asked him, what is the meaning of girl child being given priority over a boy child? And he told us that when you educate the two, the only person who always come back to you as the father or a mother is your daughter. And your boy will always go back to his in-laws. And his statements, after we grow up, we came to realize his statements hold some realities and truth in it. And looking at the early marriages in South Sudan, what do you talk about that? Currently, is common. You'll find a South Sudanese, especially Dinka man and a Nuer, who have or who has PhDs, go back home and look for that village girls of 14 years to 16 years old to be his wife. What can you say about that?
Thank you so much. That is a very sensitive question, and it's tied to a lot of historical factors and culture at the same time. But what I would say is this: if you are a grown-up man, let's say 30, older, or even 25, 21 here in the United States is considered as an adult, and you go and marry a 14, 15, 16 years old, I just think that there's so much imbalance of knowledge, imbalance of destroying somebody opportunity. And also when I just think back when now that I'm older, the way I think now versus the way I thought when I was 14, 15 is totally different. And what happened is that when you marry a 14 years old, 15, 16 girl, they don't have an idea of who they are as a person to begin with. They might have a concept of like, I'm a girl from this tribe or whatever. I know how to get water, how to go to school and all of this, but they don't really know. They don't even know the desires of their heart or like legacies they want to accomplish. So you take that child and you marry them. Okay, maybe you will put them through school, but most likely, if they become mothers, chances of them finishing school become really hard. And so I personally, I would say that don't do it. Wait until a girl is 25 years old, until they kind of have a sense of who they are as human being. Um, and also when later on, because all of these crises we see, you come and there's a lot of brokenness in the families that we didn't see before. And I think part of it is connected to to finding an ideal partner that sound very fancy in drawing it or saying it, but in reality, when you put two people together, most likely people that are successful in their marriage or relationship is like you have to have some common ground, and you have to have some interest in your legacies of who you are as a person and things that you want to build. And we know this even in your own family as siblings. You can disagree all the time, let alone somebody that was grown up, like brought up in a different culture, different family values. Now you coming together, they don't know themselves. Maybe you are the one that is marrying, you know who you are, and you're going to tell, I want you to do this and this. They're going to see that as dominating them. And then there will be a lot of like breaking down in relationship, or where somebody just call up and they don't even hear, and they just go and they just, in that sense, it's like, if you are educated, are you even in the same level mentally and spiritual and everything? Like, to me, that is so important. And I don't see that is just when you have people that are way older and younger. Because even like if you talk, let's say, for example, I'm talking about coming here to United States as a lost girl. I talk about my time in Kakuma refugee camp. But if that child was born after I left Kakuma refugee camp and I'm going to them and talk to them, what are they gonna? There's no connection. There's no relationship. And at the bottom of it, they are children and they need to be going to school. When I say school, I'm not just saying English school. They can be taught in their own dialect. That is a school too. And to know how to be a woman or be a man or whatever in their settings, they need that. They don't need to be married at 15, 16.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for enlightening our viewers and also sharing your opinions or your thoughts on that specific topic regard to our cultures and the Western world cultures. We'll go back to the contributions of lost girls and lost boys to the struggle of South Sudan, then, and to current situation of South Sudan. What do you think, as one of these people or this category, what do you think that could you say clearly that this is our contribution that we have done to our country, and this is what we have done to our families, our friends, and the entire society? What are those contributions that you made in general? And at the end, you will tell us and our viewers, because today, the first show, we also you on Lagos State Media, we will talk more about you yourself. And maybe next second show, we will look at the topic, and then you will come and talk about that topic. You will close the contributions of Lost Boys, Lost Girls with your personal contribution.
Thank you. You put me on the spot. And I don't like to talk about my contribution, but I will try my best. I would say that the first and most powerful contribution that I have done is to be who I am. Because we have known in South Sudan, before it was Sudan, before there were a lot of children that left. Some went to Khartoum, some went to Libya or other neighboring countries, really. And not everybody that have returned, and not everybody that was contributing back. So I think that for me personally, coming here at 15 and was able to go back 3 times to try to give back to the country. I went to Yabus, I went as far as Yabus and Kurmuk, and I went to Atar and Malakal. I have never even been to my home village. But I was going back there as a way to say, okay, my education, I can share with my fellow South Sudanese citizen. So I would say that was the first contribution, or like I would say that's the biggest contribution that I have done, is just to be able to achieve my dream of education and to be able to go back home and do that. My last trip was in Juba, where I was doing trauma healing training with some of American colleagues of mine. And it was interesting, you know, getting to know everybody and what we have been through as a nation, and having people from different background, from prison, from other places. So that was, I would say that was, to me, I would say that as an accomplishment. Also, personal accomplishment is being able to record my family history. Uh, as a person, you know, that was born in Sudan, now South Sudan, and lost both of my parents in the war, I didn't have the privilege of hearing every day their life. But talking to my family members and recording this book, I would say that is a success personally. Some few other things that are very general is being able to provide education for some family members back home, making sure that they go to school and making sure that they go to the hospital if they need to go, and making sure that they have food on their table if they need it. But that is general. We all do it. And it's not one person can do it alone. And I really dream of one day, one time, where we can have a bigger goal or dream where we put everything together, and not just do it as a family to family, but just a nation in general, like who really need help. Is it somebody that is in Kurmuk, in Yabus? Is it somebody that is in Capoeira? Is it somebody that is, you know, in Lair? Is it somebody that is at the border of Congo or a will? You know, I hope that one day we will reach to that destination where it will not be a family to family help, but a nation to nation help.
All right. Sorry for not having your parents at this particular time. To see the success that you have achieved so far is a bit challenging. But we appreciate you for being kind and focused and committed to your cause, because you want to change the narrative of the family lineage and your tribe. That is a Dinka perspective. I'll give you a break at least to rest a bit, and I'll shift it to Abraham Adit as one of the lost boy. Can you tell us what are those great contributions that you made to the struggle? I understand some of you left the country or left your parents at the younger age of 6, 7 to 10 to 12, and you joined the movement of the SPLA during the struggle. And then with the courtesy of our late president and the father of the nation, Dr. Garang, it came into his mind at least to sort you out, especially the younger one, and try to send you based on his relationship with the neighboring states, Uganda and Kenya and Ethiopia, and send you out to seek for education. Now, some of you became like you had that privilege of leaving Africa. You came to a different continent in the first world country, and now you are making a great impact to the society. Can you tell us, at your perspective as one of this category, what are those huge contributions that you have done? And to my sister Rebecca, it was Mother Teresa of Calcutta said that when you want to do something, don't do great things in bigger way. You do great things in a smaller way. Whatever life that you touch, be it hospitals, schools, meal provided to them, advice, those lives will never remain the same. Thank you for that and keep it up. Abraham, take the floor and the chance is yours.
Thank you, Brother Majok, and our special guest this evening, Sister Rebecca Deng. Thank you so much. This is the wonderful thing that you ask very important question to our guests. And to answer your question too, as one of the lost boy, your question is really because what the lost girl done during when they came to the United States, you know, I always tell to South Sudanese who didn't witness a horrific life experience when we were in Sudan at the time. And during that time, the Lost Boys or Jejamer or Red Army. So we divided into three groups. There is Big Dick, Margaret, and the other above age, Pronobus. You know, most of the Lost Boys came to Kakuma at that time, majority of them. You know, can you imagine when we track it back to Ethiopia, the number of the Lost Boys who went to Ethiopia at that time between 1983 to 1991 or 1990s is about 26,000. That's the estimate. And when the Lost Boys traveled back to Sudan and then from Sudan to Kakuma, you know, most of the number that reach out to Kakuma is about you can estimate about 10,000 Lost Boys. And, you know, and people who make out from Kakuma to the United States is estimated about 4,000 Lost Boys there. And, you know, and if we can recall on this journey, when we are young and then we grow up, right now we are not the boys anymore, we are adults. Majority of us finish school, marriage, we have kids, work. Yes, when we calling back what we done, the Lost Boy Muslim, the Lost Girl, when we came to the United States, you know, this is what I always tell to South Sudanese, that without Lost Boys, the Lost Girl, the independent of South Sudan, South Sudanese people will be still fighting with the North Arab now, without the Lost Boys. Why I say this? When we came, Rebecca and I and the rest of 3,000 Lost Boys in there, when we came to the United States, we didn't sleep. We came and our story, and you can scroll on this book that my sister wrote. We read out a lot. Our story of the Lost Boys and girl paint the picture about what's going on in Sudan. And that's where the international community, including the United States of America, step up and they listen to us. And that's where you see the referendum or CPA by then. And former President Bush, George W. Bush, he put his agenda is one priority before he leave the office so that the country, South Sudan, get independent. South Sudan get their independent freedom that they want. And why they do that? Because they hear our story. That's one of the achievements I see the Lost Boy did that. I'm not going to say about after what we done. Most of us went back, building school, clinic, help people out. All of this we done, you know. And I'm not going to be speaking a lot about politics, about what happened in 2013 and now, because we are heartbroken on that. And this is a message that we send to rebel and government and opposition of South Sudan that the reason why the Lost Boys are quiet all this time and we don't speak out about what's going on in South Sudan is because we're telling you guys, the Lost Boys and Lost Girl, that won't see another generation of Lost Boy and Lost Girl again after us. Let the Lost Boys, the Lost Girl remain and stop with us. So we carry them to having a peace in the country. That's a priority. And people did say that. I hope I answer your question, but let me go back to my my sister because for the books that she wrote, I would like to ask you about I know when we came to the United States in 2000 and 2001, it's 22 years now. So how is it like? How you feel like after 22 years in America? And this question, that's what I'm hearing a lot from my American friends and family. They always ask me, where are the Lost Boy and Lost Girl? So I'm referring this question to you, Sister Rebecca Deng. Where are the Lost Girl, the Lost Boys? So you can answer that question to us and to the viewers.
Yeah, thank you, Madit. Yeah, it depends on when you came. I came November 6th of 2000, so I was in the very first plane that took off in Kakuma. And I remember we didn't even spend a night in Nairobi. We just went directly to Europe and then to our final destination. So November 6th of 2000, that's 21 years. And for some, it's 20 years. Where are the lost boys and the lost girls of Sudan? Um, that is a general question. And I would say where we are as people, when I talk generally, I would say that I'm proud of the population of the lost boys and lost girls of Sudan based on accomplishment that we have done. But where are we? I always go back. There was a question that one of my cousins asked before. It was just the very beginning when we came to United States. And they were talking about like, oh, these children, some of them have a durag, some of them have a chain that is hanging, and their pants are hanging down, and some are really looking nice. And he said, people listen. It's too soon to tell. It's too soon to judge who is wearing bling bling, who is not, who is doing what, who is listening to what music, who is not. Give yourself 20 years. After 20 years, you come back and tell us like who is doing what. And I think that so when we came to this country 20 years ago, right? We came as a lost girl, a lost boy of Sudan, and life just happened. Life happened to people. We have doctors, we have nurses, we have lawyers, we have historian, we have mathematician, we have homeless. And it's true, we have people on the street that came with us, as
And
well as success.
we lost some of our colleagues to pass away.
Yes, yeah, and so that's when you talk of generation, when you talk of people and population, you have to be able to look at the spectrum. And those people, the hard part is that some people that are on the street were people you will expect it less because they came here as even older than some people. But then what happened, because these were the people in the beginning that seemed like they have it together. That's another topic for another day. And how coming to different cultures and cultural shock and coping and stereotyping and profiling and trauma, like all of those things, there's a different lens to look at that. But where are we as people? We are fathers, we are mothers, we are educators, we are some of the people that went back home to build the nation. We are some of the people that are not really building the nation. And so I start with me, like I'm here, I could be back home, but I'm not there. So is that a success or a failure? It's both, you know. I could be back there and do something, but I have failed to go back based on other stuff that are another topic for another day. So yeah, we are pretty much, when you ask me that question, where are the lost boys and lost girls? I say that we are in the spectrum of success, middle, people that have failed, people that are coming back up, people that can be. We are everywhere, and we are not everywhere at the same time. That's how I put it.
Actually, the reason why I'm asking this question, because when I think about our life story as a lost boy and girls, I recall in the Bible when Jesus Christ was preaching his disciple, and when he said that, okay, there are, he was giving an example to the disciple that when you grow crops, and then there are some crops will go to the rock, and that's rock. Those crops cannot bear any seed; they will not grow. And some of crop that went to a good garden that is good to grow those crops, they will bear a fruit, and then people can eat. And this is what happened to us. So when we go back, when uh, the late leader Dr. John Grant said that we are the root, we are the seed of the nation. And the reason why I do that is because when we grow up, we finish our school, we're going to go back and build the country. Because that generation fighting of the civil war for the last 22 years or 21 years, and that generation will not leave the country. Some of them will die, some of them will get old, but we, the young that have been put in school, even though we served for a long way, so we'll take that place. But that dream, I didn't see because most of us accomplished a lot. We finished school. So 1% or less than 1% are the one who went to that rock that didn't grow. But 99% of us did well in America. And the only thing that we are not the generation that was supposed to go back home and develop the new country, we didn't give a chance, you see, to go to do that. And we are capable of doing that. Some of us, a few of us went back and they see a lot of them, then they come back. So this is what and that I want to, this show today for you coming here, Rebecca Deng, it's not only you wrote this book. It's not because you wrote this book. It's because your book, your story, is telling the story of the lost boys and girls. And this, your story and your book is awakening. And this today we do this show to wake all the lost boy, lost girl. Okay, after 22 years, yes, we accomplished. You married, you have a family. You finish your school. Okay, what's next? That's it. So we still have a work to do. The country is not stable. South Sudan is not stable. It needs us again. And so that's what I would like to send that message out for that question. And my next question to you, you said, yeah, I will not go back about the culture shock thing because I know you mentioned very good point. Because I remember when I was 16, by then we are different 1 year. When I came to the United States, I was 16 years old and I lived with foster care. And I know how that culture shock was. We weren't wearing a duet when we were in high school. We wear bling bling, we got a ear fear, we put all this kind of stuff, we look good. And then when we were between three culture shock, different culture shock. Our own culture as a Sudanese, African American culture, and the white people culture, you see? So we are mangling around when we are young, we're doing this kind of stuff, and then we're wearing this bling bling, all kind of stuff. But when we finish high school, we go to college. And then we are about to graduate from college, and then we start to learn, okay, there's something new. Some of us, okay, we need to leave all this bling and do weather behind us, and then start the new journey. New journey is start the new family, marriage, you have kids. So that's the change that we see. So my question to you, what advice do you want to give to us as a lost boy and girls? What can we make? What can we make again or the future become what we want us to do?
Thank you, Majid. Thank you so much. I think the only advice I will try to give the lost boys and the lost girls and all of our other brothers and sisters that doesn't fit that category is the advice that I give myself. And that advice is that knowing where we have come from, knowing where we are now. And yes, you illustrated so well, Madit, about most of people that came are doing really well, but there's some percentage. And also we think of like, even if there's 99 that is doing well, that one thing we have to figure out how to make it whole again, like one of us, like how we come. So my advice to us is to work hard, go to school, work if you have a job, provide for your family that are here in the United States and also back home, and try to contribute to the nation building as much as you can. And also, what I would say is really call for unity. Um, one of the disheartening thing, and it's hard for people to agree, is that because we have experienced hardship as a lost boys and lost girls, and because we have came to get opportunity to come and get Western education, doesn't guarantee that we can actually be good leaders. So we really need to look into our hearts and ourselves and how we lead within our immediate family to the bigger nation and to change things. And I also say that my advice that I will give is that we really start to recognize those who are gifted in a leadership, and make a case as a diaspora that these are the seed that John Grant talked about. When John Grant was talking about the seed of South Sudan, it might not be me, but it might be you, Madit, or somebody else that is not here. It might be one of the lost boys. It might be somebody that was born shortly after we left and they have the leadership skills. So how do we steward our gift as a nation, as people of South Sudan, as lost boys and lost girls, and also those who don't fit into the category of the lost boys and lost girls, but are in our age bracket or younger or a little bit older? How do we make sure that everybody that is doing their best, because some of them have went to school in East Africa, and we know that the school in East Africa is superior too, just like here. It's a good school. So what are we doing with those graduates that are there as a part of a nation building? I think that that will be my advice, to start thinking of those big vision, because we can narrate what John Garang have said for like 100 years. That's why there are historical figures. John Garang is a historical figure, but to keep talking about John Garang dream that is not put into reality is not sustainable. Uh, so, and also has a lost girls and lost boys. We keep saying that is misleading. We are not boys and we are not girls anymore. We are adults. Some of people our age bracket are president in their countries or doing things. So I think my advice I'll give myself is what I will give the lost boys and our viewers and our brothers and sisters that are in diaspora and that are in the nation. It's like, what do we do? One thing that I love is that John Garang is respected really well by the diaspora and those on the ground. So what are we doing to make sure his vision? And John Graham was not only coming up with those visions, he came up with those visions with people. So what are those people that were with him doing to make sure that the dream of the seed of the nation is alive? And those seed of nation doesn't only apply to the lost boys, apply to the children that are being born now and some that are already born. What are we doing? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 20 years from now, what are the vision of the nation? That will be my advice.
Thank you, thank you. That's yes, that's wonderful advice. I hear microphone back to Brother Majok.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abraham Adit, for your answering the questions of your contributions. You put it correctly. Some of you as lost boys and lost girls, you contributed greatly towards the attainments of our independence as the state, and that things can be given to you as lost boys and lost girls. And beyond that, some of you actually went as far as constructing schools back home. And the good example here in the studio with us is none other than Abraham Adit, who his schools is now running back home and is having children, helping those kids who have no chances of moving to the far ends of Uganda and the capital city, Juba, to come and acquire education. That is a positive step. And to Rebecca, thank you for your advice. Actually, you put it rightly that 99% of lost boys and lost girls are doing very well now in their respective fields. Although there are some few or portion of it is not doing very well. So it will be a question of do lost boys and lost girls have like an umbrella from Australia, from Canada, USA, and even Europe? If you have an umbrella, then it will be very easy for you to remind these people the dark days where you left the country and you came to this part of the world. We will move quickly to the part of child upbringing here in Western society. And you know, Rebecca, hardship sometimes contribute toward the upbringing of a child. But the freedom itself become a disaster to some extent. It was last Saturday, we went for a certain prayers, and one of the kids stood and spoke. And this kid said something which I always think about. He said, our parents are now blaming us that we are growing up with a different values and wrong attitude. And it was not our making to come and grow up here in West. And we don't like it to grow up here. Some of us don't even know their mother language, especially the first language. And that statement is huge if you think about it. As Rebecca, being girls, being lady, being woman, sometimes you are the mothers of this world. And you're the people that always being touched when some things are happening around you. What can you say about that? Because some of our children are not fulfilling our expectation as in migrants in this part of the world. What can you say about that?
Thank you, Major. Thank you so much. Parenting is what everybody is asking, and it doesn't really matter what your background or race is. From each generation to the next, there's always cultural differences and struggle and new ideas and new technologies that affect how people react. As human being, one thing that is true for humanity is that we yell or we long for connection, whatever that means. In the village, it could be a connection of going to the cattle camp and having different cattle camp from different people, and you go and meet up and you sing and you have a wrestling match and all of that. For younger people here, it can look like going camping or to the movie theater or playing games, where sometimes you see someone sitting in the room and they're shouting and you're like, oh, who? And they are playing with somebody that live in Canada online. So that's become tricky, right? It become tricky. How do you do parentings? Because you have parents that didn't grow up with technology, for example. And there are children online, what they're seeing, what they're talking about, you have no idea. Uh, so the reality is that there is already a breakdown into expectation where the children say that our parents say that you're not meeting our expectation. And I think that for a parent, to be honest, to ask a child that was born here to meet up all the expectation is just not realistic. But this is what you can do. You can be friend to your child, and you can say that I have no idea how it is to grow up as you, because maybe the parent grow up in the village or they grow up in town, and they know they are Dinka, they are Nuer, they are Murle, they are Taposa or whatever. They know the identity. But over here, your parents are telling you you're South Sudanese, but then when you go to school, like maybe you are one out of hundreds of children that don't even know where South Sudan is. And number one, if you are a male or female, you are a black person. And we have to think, like different thing. Like back home, you grow up knowing your name. Like I say in my book, I narrate. But over here, you just go and tick, are you African American? There's no even a bar that say that you are from Africa. They just have that. So that in itself is huge on children and the identity. So I think the best advice I will give is ask your children constantly how they feel as a black person in United States, not as a South Sudanese, because that's the category that they fall in. And also try to bring them to cultural activities where they can connect with their roots and their people and their culture, maybe coming up with like a performance team that can teach professionally, not just a strict dancing up and down or whatever it is in culture, but mix it with the new. It will be cool, to see these young people. Maybe they can mix, they can do a remix of their cultural heritage and what they know now. So my advice is really just meet them where they are, invite them to come to South Sudan. I know that it's so expensive for tickets and for families to travel overseas, but that will be another way to take them there to connect with their heritage. But to really scream at them and tell them you're not meeting our expectation and you are failing us is really wrong. Because I remember when I was growing up in Kakuma refugee camp, like I will speak and they say you are not speaking like our Dinka dialogue, and when you talk you sound like you from here or there or like from Bor or Bargazal or whatever. But I have no idea how our people speak in the village because I left when I was young. So it was hard. As long as I can understand Dinka, that's what, and it served me well. And even when I went back home, I was about to make it to my home village. I didn't. But then when I hear older people speaking, I have to really listen well because the accent is totally different than what I heard in Kakuma refugee camp. And that Dinka, and I speak Dinka. I don't know how to read or write it, but I speak Dinka pretty well. I can understand it, but it's still I struggle. So just take that in itself and then ask somebody that was born here in the United States, have zero background or back home, and then expect them to dance like your people, to speak like your people, to have the same respect. Like I grew up when a person talked to me and is an older person, I will always look down. Here in the United States, if you do that, you are rude. If an adult is talking to you and you're looking down, so the child is going to look straight at you, and then you're like, oh, you man, can you or something like that. Like that is weird to say that you can just be like in this culture, in this cultural context, it's appropriate like this, and take time to explain things. I feel like sometimes we don't explain things, we just react and out of frustration and think that people will automatically know the culture. Culture is taught, culture is practiced, culture is what you eat. Culture, So for somebody that is so disconnected that much, the only thing you can do is to say that I have no idea how it is to be. Like I say that to my children all the time. I have no idea what it is to be you, but you can teach me how to understand you because I love you, I feed you, I buy you things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I understand the world because they are totally coming out from a different background. But I can show Dinka music and they dance to it sometime. We look at like animal sounds and like make fun, script out of it. Or like I say, one day we will go and visit back home. That's the best I can really do. That's my advice.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca. Literally, you are saying there is communication breakdowns or relationship between parents and their children, and this topic is huge. Lagos State Media will arrange to invite some of the speakers in next time, and you will be included to talk about on how uh, parents can use their wisdom to shape their children. Literally, Rebecca some of us are worried. There is degenerations happening. The young people that we relied heavily at the country are the ones that are dying. In Australia, I heard they even form gang. South Sudanese, the same thing is happening in Egypt. And here in America, some of them are dying. There is shooting everywhere. So you wonder what is happening. Literally, our parents left home in a quest for better education, better life, to bring their children up in a civilized, decent life for society, which some of us refer to heaven. We refer Western world to heaven compared to South Sudan. And unfortunately, the heaven is turning to be hell. So when you look at the relationship on how we approach as the parent, I can agree with you because the approach is completely different. How our parents approach us back home is totally different from how you approach your children in a decent, civilized society. Back home, a child becomes a child of everyone in the society. Your uncle can beat you for the thing that you have not even done. Your external uncle or even somebody that not related to you can beat you for the issue or for the case that you have not committed. And literally, it was like part of our bringing children. But here in West, we don't have such. Even the tone which channels our advice to our children sometimes irritate them. Now here, if you look at our parents are too busy. Some of them have two jobs. You can go to work in the morning hours, the morning shift. You come back home for 30 minutes, have your breakfast or your dinner, and then you go back for a night shift like at 7:30 p.m. Do you think really, do they have time here for their children? Should we blame parents for that? Or should we blame technology? As you mentioned before, some of them, this technology is becoming anti-socialism or social life. You'll find people sitting in the car, like the public mean, and each one of them is busy with his or her phone, talking to or communicating with the different world. And they're not even talking to themselves, and they're next to each other. The same thing have shifted to our household, where parents don't even sit in the sitting room with the children and watch televisions, watch documentaries, and talk about the stories. You'll find children confine themselves in their living rooms or their house, their living, actually their bedrooms, talking to their technology. So who here should we blame? The parents who occupy themselves with a lot of jobs, or the technology our kids are so much in love with? Take the floor, and I would like Abraham Adid also to weigh in that question.
Thank you, Majid. Personally, I feel like there's no one to blame. Uh, as you say in the beginning, we came to the West thinking that it's heaven, and that's the mistake that we made in the first place, because there's no heaven on earth. That's the truth. But there was opportunities that are more here. Going back to upbringing, I remember when I was growing up in Kakuma, I didn't hang out with like older people all the time. Even if you hang out around them, they'd be like, "Yeah, man, Didi, who are you? Go over there, go play with kids," right? But once you are going there to play with other kids, other people, like take a village to raise a child, other people are keeping an eye on you. And I remember, like when we go to the borehole and do pump the water, sometimes we fight over there. And I just remember, even before I reach home, my uncle would be waiting for me. So you did this, and they didn't have cell phone. And I'm like, how did they even hear it or know about it? And it's because everybody that was there saw it and then come and give a report quickly before I come home. So in that sense, there were a lot of people, the village, that have eyes on the children. Even if the children are not always hanging out with parents, there are people that are watching them. I remember when I will go and say I'm going to group 17, that's where my mom come from. My uncle will let me work with my cousin boys. So I was never on by myself, or I go with other girls there, my friends to my mom's side of family. And those things are not here anymore. um, United States or the Western world is so lonely. If you're working, it's your immediate family. It's a nuclear family. It's not extended family. It's not designed that way. It's designed for like smaller family. And so if you are working and your child is at home all day, they're gonna find a way to connect. Like I said in the beginning, before the humanity, one thing that is true about human, it doesn't matter what race or tribe or religious creeds, whatever it is that is your background, we long to be accepted and to be seen and to be heard. And people are going to do whatever they can to feel that they are relevant and that they are seen. And if your parents are working all day, you're gonna find another way to be part of the group. That's not a fault of the parents. They have to provide food on the table. So the village is just taken out. And they say like that saying that say take a village to raise a child is so true. And even here in the West, when you see American, what I call the old American, we have new American, has immigrant and refugees coming, the old American. You will go back, I have some of my friends that have their great grandmothers. And while the mother is at the school teaching the grandmother that is retired, not working anymore, is taking kid to the park. We don't have that. We do not have that. We don't have grandmothers or grandpas here in the United States. It's just you and your family. So that's why I say that looking back in where we have been, there might be some structure of family in our upbringing that we kind of disregard as backward and life in the village and these things that might be really helpful to have more people around so that they can help, even if they are not under the same household, to know that, like there's a saying here in the United States, right? For grandmothers, it's like, my job is to spoil my grandkid, but not to raise them. You raise your children well, so you can be able to spoil your grandkid, but not raise the children of your kid. So knowing those responsibility and also supporting the parent in that call, if they are immediate parent and their dad is working, if there's somebody in the community or family member that can fill in between that time, even just going for the work. And also we have to think like environmentally. We, most of us grew up maybe in warm place, and then you are here in the United States and you are indoor all the time. Young people that are born here, maybe they pick up like skating or skiing or being outside. And so sometimes it's cold physically. You just come from work and you want to be inside. And then your kids are there by themselves. That thing can influence. And I know personally, because I came here just a little bit older, it's easy for me to just outing with my kid. Even if I go and sit and I just see them playing soccer, I would go with them. And for some people, it might be hard because they are tired and it's too cold trying to put on a jacket and go outside. You are just indoor. Well, kids are going to be bored and they're going to go and try to find other children that who knows what they are struggling with, and there they go, because what your friend is doing is normal. So I think that coming as a community and not just saying, oh, we used to be this culture, like really look into a research and look into a statistic and look into the numbers, how we are changing. I think we really need to change our perspective about looking into family and maybe bringing back old practice of like a take a village. Maybe we need to practice that more.
Yeah, thank you so much. That is a powerful statement, because we need to bring back the village, because the village equations is no longer there, and that is one of the things contributing greatly toward the degenerations of our children. Yeah, Abraham Adit, you can wait in that questions as we will wrap up our today's show within next 15 minutes with the last questions on my side. And if you have other questions, then after you answer this question, you can pose your question.
Thank you, Brother Bijou. This is a very important question, and I'm happy that the way that Sister Rebecca put that is take a village to raise one child. I remember in Tongmonjang they said that when they said that with the Akaranman. So you remember when the kid want to play and they make a mistake somewhere, and somebody just passing by and they don't even know, and they see that the kid is doing a bad thing, that person can take something to slide that kid, and then it will cry and run. The next time he will not or she will not do it again, But we are now in different culture. So remember, you mentioned about the culture shock, and then we graduate from the culture shock to culture change. This is what's going on here in the South Sudanese community, in Western country, United States, and Australia, even Canada. And we know American culture here very well, because here in American culture, the law are there, and nobody above the law. The majority, when we talk about sexual norm and value here in the United States, the woman, the kid has been given right, and then followed by the woman. You see? So in here, when you put your hand in the kid, you slap the kid, and kid call 911. Your parent will get in trouble. So, and this is one of the things I see it play a role, but also culture change is one majority. As you see, if we can look into a Sudanese divorce rate, that's one of the big factors that play a role here. Divorce rate is very high in our community. So in here in the Western world. And the way on this divorce rate is very high because what I call it before is the culture change. We win that we see how the American or Australian or Canadian do their things, and then okay, this is the rule we are here. So we are not follow our way, Dinka or Sudanese way that it take ability to raise a child. No, we are not going to do that. We are in different environment right now, different culture, and this is where I am, and this is where I'm growing up. And this is how the family breakdown come in. When the family breakdown, when the parent divorced, separated, who are the victim here? The kid. The kid are the victim here. They are the one who suffering. Because when the parent separate, the kid will live abnormal. They will not. And the kid need both parents to be around them. So, and you can see how the children are suffering, because some of the kids that will go there, out there in school, meet with their friends. They will do whatever they do out there, but nobody keep an eye on them, because there's no 2 eye or 4 eye. 2 parents are not there. So only 1 parent is doing the work. And if this 1 parent is staying with the kid, and he or she going to work, so who else can see here the well-being of the kid? Nobody. So, and this is the huge thing. Our community, our people need to look into it again, to see how you need to put your ego aside, your difference with your partner aside, and put the well-beings of your kid first. So, and that is what we want to do, to talk and see what went wrong, how can we fix it for the sake of our kid, because our kid now, they're losing their life, especially we are even a little bit better, but Australia is getting worse. The children, teenagers, they're getting to gang and they're killing one another. So it's sad to see losing these children in very early age. And this is a very challenging question, and our community, South Sudan community, need to come to do this, because it is hurt. It's hurting children. And another thing too, as we talk about this topic, especially we the lost boys, we this is getting to us too. Majority of us, majority of us who married went back home and get married and bring their wife here in the United States, and then 3 years or 4 years later they divorce because of this I call it culture change. And that's one of the things we need to look. It's hard to swallow, and you know that's not. It's not a it's not a problem to change from your culture to a different culture, but don't change it in the bad way. Change in a good way. Just change if you want to learn a different culture. Learn a good thing on that culture they are doing. Take a good things, but don't go and learn about the bad stuff that culture are doing. So, and this is I hope I answered this question. And most of the Sudanese have the same question. They are wandering around when they sit down on their dinner table with their kid and look in their eye, or if both kid or one parent is there and they sit down alone in that dinner table with those kids, that will no advice. No, the kid need dad advice. Hear from dad, from the father, and the kid need advice from the mom. Those two voices are powerful. But if one voice is not in the house, that's leave a deep hole in the family room, in family. So thank you, brother. So that's, I think I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, Abraham Adit. That is a good answering and some thoughts that can help us and definitions of what the problem is. It's also involving home breakdown because there are some home who are not in the same page, and children sometimes become victim, as you put it. And of course, we have cultural structural adjustment. But the question is, which direction did we adjust this cultural structural adjustment? As you put it, up to this juncture, to the viewers, Clubhouse, YouTube, and on Facebook, you are encouraged and you are invited to purchase or buy our guest in the studio today, Madam Rebecca Deng, book titled What the Man for Devil. Buy that book. It have a lot of useful information and a lot of cultural oriented thoughts that you can also pick some of the chapters there and give it to your children to read through so that they can know the reason why one should have like 15 names of the great 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 grandparents in his or her family lineage. As you will do that as South Sudanese or anybody online, it will also motivate our sister Rebecca to write more book, and it will also encourage her and other South Sudanese ladies outside and women's and also men on the same note to write their stories. It is time for us to write our own stories than our stories to be told by other societies. My last questions to my sister, Rebecca Deng. In this world, for you to step out of your comfort zone and write your book or a story, you must be having somebody that inspired you or your role model. Who are your role models currently? Be it South Sudanese woman, be it an African woman, be it world society woman like Westerners or Eastern part of the world. Who are those your role models that you can say you have learned something from them, and these people you look up to them? In the future, even my little girl, because I'm a father of little girl, she might look after you in the future? Who are those role models of yours?
Thank you. Thank you, Majid. My role model, my early childhood, when I was, I think, like ages 1 to about 5, is my grandmother, which I have described very detailedly in my book. I know her better than my mother because she raised me. She was one of the, she have never been to school, but I think she's one of the wisest people that it doesn't matter how many books I will read in the world, but she is one of the wise people and hardworking. And also that's where I got my strengths of, because like growing up, like I remember asking my uncle in Kakuma, I'm like, did grandma ever like how did he have, where is grandma husband or something like that? Because I remember growing up in the village, my grandfather died before I was born, so I never seen him. But I have seen how many visitors that come through our place and how many cows she have and the generosity. I would say that he was the first humanitarian person I know. Like literally will give cows to the next family. If she sees somebody, they don't have cows, she will say, oh, they are. And I remember there was one cow, it's called Aja Dubek. And it just had a little baby cow, Marial, and that was my favorite. And I remember there was a family next door and they didn't have anything. And she said, oh, Aja Dubek is going to be given to them so that they can have the milk. And I remember crying all day because I'm like, what about Mariala Aja Dubek is my, it was like kind of my first pet. So that was my first role model. Everything that I have seen, we did talk much because I was young, but I think her actions of generosity, of providing, of just being a kind person. Um, I know that in our culture, children are teach really young to do things. I remember coming to Kakuma and my uncle asking me literally to give them like a fire to start a tobacco or something like that. And I remember going there. That was just the beginning of Kakuma and starting. Then I say, oh, I burned my hand and I didn't even touch it. And it's like, what is this child? Like, your grandmother is not here that never teach you how to do this. So she really gave me a foundation of being a child. She really gave me to just play, to love animals like the cows that were there, to just explore in her garden like I described. Like everything I described there is how I literally grew up. So she's my first role model because I really believe, and I think that's why we are struggling here in the West too. Personally, I believe that when you are a child from ages 0 to 5 to 6 to 7, the innocence of a child need to be protected. It's so good. Like when you are a child and you don't, like that's why technology become tricky, because there are certain things that children should have not have access to, or just even some language that is beyond them. But children are very creative. You can take them for a walk, you can draw with them, you can do things. So that's my first role model. I think that the second role model is really anybody in the world that are South Sudanese and non-South Sudanese that have done their best to, how do I say, that have done their best to paint it their life after imaginable circumstances that could go a different way, but they have taken courage. So anybody that really have a courage, and when I say courage, it could be a courage to finish what you have started. It could be a courage to really look into your own heart and say that I'm wrong and admit you being wrong. It could be a courage to really call out injustice, that are not right, even if it is your own child or your brother or something like that, to say that's wrong. So I would say those are my role models, those people who have tried or who continue to try their best every single day in a small thing to be faithful. Faithfulness in what you do, even if you don't do it well, but say, I'm going to try again. I'm going to try to be better tomorrow. I think those are my role models.
Wow, that is amazing, and that is so touching and great, because basically, we South Sudanese and Africans in general, we have that low self-esteem, whereby it's hard for an African child or a South Sudanese child to acknowledge his or her parents or great grandparents or anybody close or their village mates or women as their role models, because we always adapt to other uh, human beings from different societies. But this story of your grandmother is a great one. Up to this level, I will just give in word of my appreciation. And then I'll give it to Abraham Adit before you give in your last parting shot of this today interview. Thank you so much, Rebecca Deng. To all our viewers, I remind you, we South Sudanese, we lack one thing: support. Kindly, can we learn how to support each other? If you are there, support Rebecca to purchase her book, and by that, uh, she will be grateful to you, and she will write more books. Uh, that is a reminder I have to put across. And thank you, Rebecca, for the first time in Lagos State Media. We will be grateful again to host you for second time to come and share some of your thoughts in a specific topic, because today was basically on your book and your experience as lost girls, and is a very good interview. I personally, on behalf of Lagos State Media, I'm really glad and I appreciate your time. I'll yield it back to Abraham Adit, or I yield it back to you so that you can put your last parting shot, and then Abraham Adit will close it with his remark. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate you inviting me here today. I remember when Madit emailed me, and I jokingly say that if I show up, because it's a Friday night, right? And as a working person and a mother, sometime like at the end of the day, you forget things. So and he was very determined. He said that I will track you down if that means calling you on the phone something. And so I just apologize for the very beginning where I had to struggle with technology. You think that I do, but I don't. I'm not. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not really on most of the time. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I just want to thank everybody, the viewers that have taken their time tonight to watch this. Um, as you say, there's an African saying that say, if the lion doesn't until the lion learn how to ride, every history will glorify the hunter. So until we look into ourselves, like I just say as my grandmother, because sometimes like you say, my joke about having an influencer or somebody that we look up to, we can find them outside, but we can really find them in our own upbringing. Sometimes it's just a matter of language and expression, but I feel everything that is here, like people talk about democracy. I have seen that in my upbringing where people really lead their people justly and honestly. Corruption is a English word, but in our culture, how do you call those people back home? So if we go back to our roots, everything that it seemed like is new, feminism, like trying to bring to trying to value the life of baby girl and baby boy equally. We have seen that in our culture. For example, I hail from a people called Panadu. They are called after women. A woman is what our people are called. And so, for a Western person to tell me that, like, oh, the feminism is better than mine, no, that's not true. Like, my people honor my grandmother and call her a whole tribe of people named after her. Same with on my dad's side, mom's side of family. Adul is a girl. you know. So we have all of these things. We might not have them everywhere, just like in every family. My deed family, my Duke family, how I raise my family is totally different. But we come from the same really background, but it's really not really the same. So when we look back into our own self, into our history, we will come back up with solution to things that we are facing, because it is all along. It might just be scattered all over the place, but we do have the resources and the wisdom. And my last last ask is that we support each other. So I'm very pleased with your work as Lake State Media, and that you keep inviting more people, invited people from different background of South Sudan, and also people in the diaspora that we might think that might have a clue to figuring out how do we do it. It could even be a person that is African descendant that came a long time ago and might have a wisdom how to deal with this life in this world. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sister Rebecca. It's wonderful to have you in our show, in our program. For those of you who are watching, please, I would like you guys to go to Amazon to order her book. Her book is right here, so you can order it. Just $15. You can go there and order it. It's simple, and you will get the copy of it, and you will read. It's a wonderful book. Thank you so much for coming in and explain this. This show will, people will watch later will know exactly, will learn a lot from you. We're so happy to have you in our program this evening, and I'm happy that we will bring you again. One of the person, Peter was telling you that next time you want to come back to talk in Tongwanjang, because there are some parents who don't speak English, so we need to make a show that you can tell them exactly in Tongwanjang, so that they can know what are challenging our kids are facing in the Western country. So it's wonderful to have you in the program. Thank you so much, Sister Rebecca Deng and Brother Makur. Is wonderful. It's well a show. So I will give you the last word, Makur, before I close down the show.
Yeah, thank you, Abraham. I will not say anything at this juncture, but to let South Sudanese know that you people in diaspora, especially South Sudanese, are being referred to several terms. Many other people call you backbone of the country. Others call you seeds of the nation. And really, some of you demonstrated it by deeds and word to South Sudanese that you are surely backbones and you are surely seed. Kindly, can you germinate properly? And through that, your children must know their roots, and South Sudan will be more proud of you now and forever. May God bless you. May God bless South Sudan. And thank you so much, my sister Rebecca Deng. And thank you so much.
It's your boy Young Love, Ajib Entertainment. Control leg stand and punchy America. Banyi door, the banaban. Control leg stand and punchy America. Banyi door, the banaban. Walk on your leg, Kankaro, what I know watching. Koga level leg, gear, wow, very leg. Panda with ya, punchy America. Banyi door, the Chingatongo Pandon, could you ever buy a check out? Papu Panda, gear, what ya be, door, venting. Stand panchi America, panji dwal, pan leg stand, panchi America, panji dwal, pan walk on the lake, kankaru watana watching, oga level gear power, panda with ya, panchi America, panya dwal vano, chingatongo pandon kujura by a check out, panda gear what ya be dwal venting.